Hey, JJ here with the Art of Value. So today I want to look at some takeaways from Spotify's Investor Day. I think it's the first Investor Day they've had since the beginning, pretty much. So again, I'm going to put the first few seconds of this up on Twitter. If you want to see the full podcast, click one of the links in the tweet. Okay, let's get into it. So today I'm just going to have some takeaways, some highlights. It was long, like I think it was 5 hours if you watched it live, but it was like a 3.5 hour video, which I haven't watched yet, but obviously it's one of my biggest positions. And I'm pretty keen on the company, still am after this. And so I'm just going to go through some of the highlights in case, some of the takeaways. They've got a highlights video, which I did watch, but this will probably be shorter. And I'll give a few of my opinions, comments along the way. So Daniel Ek said, from 65 markets, they went from 65 markets to 183 markets in 4 years. So it's kind of a truly global company, the most global out of their competitors. They saw the opportunity and decided to go aggressively after podcasting to expand the audience. It meant investment and more listeners, but also impacted overall gross margin. So this is the reason why a lot of investors, a lot of potential investors are a been scared off, and part of the reason why the price has gone down. I think because people think maybe podcasting won't work. It's a bit uncertain. But I can see I use Anchor as I use the Spotify tools for doing this podcast right here, and using podcast video. So I'm right in the weeds, in the trenches of using their tools, and they're good. So podcasting still is in investment mode and not yet profitable, but has 40 to 50% gross margin potential, he thinks. Spotify has dramatically expanded the podcast industry, number one platform in many markets, including the US. It's increased user growth, retention, increased engagement, overall consumption, hours reaching all-time highs quarter after quarter. We see the opportunity to explore new verticals, not only music, podcasts, and audiobooks, all living in one consumer experience. So when they're talking about, they've got a slide which I'll show later where they've got possible like 3 more verticals, and they said the audiobooks will be the next vertical. But over the next 10 years, they're going to expand their verticals from what they have. So, aiming for big growth. So they're aiming in revenue from subscriptions, ads, and marketplace. And then there's more talk about that later as well. Aiming to be the world's creative platform with artists, writers, labels, publishers, studios, creators can come to manage, where they can come to manage their businesses, and more creators means more listeners. We can attract the best brands and product partners. We will keep evolving and adding new verticals over time, more types of content, and letting artists and creators monetize their content. So I'm not monetizing my content yet. They don't have it for video podcasts, which I'm using because I want to, follow along with what they're doing with video, because I think it's got great potential. Obviously, competing with YouTube directly, really, or adding. So creators on YouTube can just add Spotify video, and why not have another source of revenue, another source of audience? So that's what Daniel said, and so they also say it's complex on the back end, but not to the user on the front end. So simple at the front end, complex on the back end. Kind of like, that makes me think of Google, right? Where you just got a page, you just got a search page, but on the back end it's complicated. It enables more verticals in one experience at will, compounding the user base rather than separate ones. So, if they can simplify this user interface and have existing users come into new verticals. The world's biggest creator stack on the back end, dedicated back ends that serve separate industries. So you've got podcasting, you've got music, you've got audiobooks, and whatever other verticals. They talked about sports and news, which are potentially big as well later on. They did mention that. First and foremost, we are in live, of course. I'm thinking of live music, live things. First and foremost, we are a music company still. Playlist ecosystem we've been creating for a decade. In 2021, more than 50,000 artists generated more than $10,000 of a year on Spotify alone. So they kind of estimated that if you if you spread it out over more platforms, it's kind of more like 40,000. We are by far the most global platform. In 2014, it was mostly US and Europe. Now it's global, with the result now is 422 million plus listeners in 183 markets. So truly global, and user numbers are really getting up there. So they're talking about, imagine in 2030, so the year, in 8 years, they're aiming for tens of millions of artists. I think they mentioned 20 million creators, 1 billion listeners, in a borderless global lens. So that's their aim, is 1 billion listeners, 1 billion active users. Well, that's what sets us apart from competitors. Preferred destination we're the preferred destination for artists, tapping into potential market of billions. In the midst of billions, or 8 billion, I guess billions eventually. In the midst of the explosion of creativity, tens of thousands of songs uploaded every day. That blew me away. Tens of thousands of songs uploaded every day. Reminds me of those stats of YouTube back in the day when it was growing. And it's just astonishing the number of things uploaded to YouTube, including this video will be. That rate has doubled in the past 2 years. So that was during COVID, of course. Creators and, well, not creators, they're musicians uploading, and labels. Oh, stop. I've missed it. I've pressed the wrong button. Just 1 second. Look at all these slides coming up. I did a lot of slides. All right. So in the midst of this creativity, artists need an evolving toolkit offering speed and scale. So I'm using their toolkit for podcasting, creating podcasts, and it's good. Anchor's good. It's easy. They've just started video. It's sort of a quick upload. It's pretty basic. Not. And they're adding things like polls and questions, and hopefully there'll be more and more tools to use there, and it'll become easier, and monetization will be entirely possible with audio and video dynamically. I expect that to be the case, and it'll be interesting to see that play out. Marketplace businesses have been the primary factor in growing gross margins. This will continue given the growth rate. They're aiming to be the most reliable marketing platform to grow an audience if you're a creator, and not just streaming income, but multiple revenue streams from one piece of content. Anchor drove massive growth for the podcast industry, which I'm using, and it's a two-sided strategy: best content and the best creation tools. They want to become the only company to have critical mass of podcast creators and listeners in the same platform. The only company to do that. They became the only company to do that, to have critical mass. And Anchor powers 75% of podcasts on Spotify. So, and then if you're on video now on Spotify Video, I encourage you to use Spotify Video just to check it out. If nothing else, get on Spotify. Even if you're on Spotify and you're not really a podcast listener, maybe you're listening to this somewhere else. Try it on Spotify and check out the video. It's a video. It's pretty good. And so podcasts on Spotify have grown from 2018 105,000 to 4 million plus today. Anchor, as I said, Anchor powers 75% of the 4 million on Spotify, which is pretty amazing, pretty quick. So they want to enable creators. These are the slides, by the way. Continuing the slides, they want to enable creators to live off their art. More creators, more profitable for more creators, and developing a few different offerings. So I'm going to go back and look at the specific video for that, because they just ended it there. I think they might have explained what some of the new offerings were, but on the highlights they skipped that. So podcast listening. Listeners who listen to podcasts and music often listen twice as much. And so they said podcast listening has grown from 7% in 2018 to 30% today on Spotify. And double the listening. If a user listens to both podcasts and music on Spotify, it tends to double their listening. In ads, music plus podcasting means 4 times the ad spend when bundled. So this is important because it's advertising revenue. When they talked about when they have a campaign, when they offer podcast advertising to clients, they get 4 times the spend when they bundle podcasting and music together. It's driving a bigger spend and growing revenues. And audiobooks is massive. They think it's a massive opportunity. I think it's the next vertical they're working on, and the category is growing. And they talked about machine learning, having machine learning driving, with creators, consumers, and monetization all together. So the right kind of balance and the right tools to drive it to the user to help with that. On track to get 1 billion users by 2020. They keep repeating this. Daniel X has said this for forever. I don't know, for a long time, ever since I've been listening to him talking, he's always said our aim is 1 billion users. His aim is 1 billion users in that, and to grow by a certain number of years. And they said they're on track. The annual ARPU, annual revenue per user, they want to be 4 times to 100 euros per year. So they want 1 billion users by 2030, which is 2x and 2x, we're at 400. I guess that's nearly 500. They must be up to nearly, and they want 100 euro ARPU and that's 4 times 4x. So the global MAUs and subs, they've got a slide for that. It's way up. Subscribers are 180 million, and MAUs are 406. In 2021 that was. And they say the emerging markets TAM is 5 times bigger than the developed markets. So it's been kind of mostly developed markets first, and they're kind of going more and more global, and they think the TAM for emerging markets is way bigger. So advertising is now poised to be a key market growth driver. And I think I do think this is, I could see the way that they could use advertising much more effectively and grow it much more than they are in many different ways. In podcasting, on small podcasts over a certain level, and big podcasts, and more music, and ad revenue in the freemium model. Better, more revenue, more. Aiming for over 10 billion euros annually in advertising, and the ad machine is ready to unlock growth. So there's a slide saying that they've got their system is 1, value proposition, 2, user intake and engagement, 3, growth advertising, 4, subscription growth, and 5, a la carte, which means kind of marketplace. And then they repeat to grow different verticals. So about a third of users listen to podcasts, and Spotify is now the global leader. We'll soon have hundreds of millions of podcast listeners on Spotify. How to scale? We see $20 billion of revenue by 2030, which is really significant. So they say that at the moment, Spotify uses 30% of people listen to podcasts, which isn't big. It's like nearly a third, but you could definitely see that growing for sure as podcast becomes more podcasts and becomes more popular. So, and they said, talking about coming, they've got, $33 billion in 2021 with podcasts and music, and they have 2030, they've got podcasts, audiobooks, live music and live, and XYZ, so different verticals to add to it to grow. Marketplace, and they talked about sports, possibly sports and news. Marketplace has grown 8 times the size in 4 years, expecting 30% growth in 2022 and growing double-digit rate in coming years. And the significant marketplace growth is 161 million in 2021 from just 8 million in 2017. That's their marketplace growth. So revenue outlook, they talk about continued subscription growth, new product SKUs, and ARPU initiatives. So they see a 20% CAGR, compound annual growth rate of 20% with subscriptions and new SKUs and ARPU, and new ad offerings, further penetration and growth in markets. The 20% CAGR, including advertising. From margin detractor to margin enhancer, consolidated gross margin benefit. That's talking about podcasting at the moment. That's detracting from margins because they're investing heavily in it, but it should add to margins. They see it as a drag of 30%, and it should add 40 to 50%. Margin expansion to 30 and then 40 to 50%. Planning to launch 3 verticals over the next 10 years. Audiobooks first, and that's with the 3 revenue streams: recurring subscriptions, advertising, and marketplace, and the 3 verticals XYZ, whatever they are. Eck says, to sum up, he's embracing complexity. They are embracing complexity and using machine learning. So in the back end, embracing complexity for a kind of new kind of business. And the opportunity is massive, he says, and we are building a machine that should generate $100 billion in revenue, he says, which is huge. If you look at the other companies that have advertising at their base, for instance, like Google and others, the big fangs, that's a lot of revenue that's up there. And they're achieving a 40% gross margin and 20% operating margin. All right, that's it. That was the highlights. That's my takeaways, and yeah, I'm still feeling good about it. Feeling doesn't matter, does it? But I'm assessing it to be on track, and I do. It keeps saying 1 billion users, and they're aiming for that, and I see lots of opportunities there, and they're basically talking about 10x from here or more. So, and I think they can do it. But it's just my opinion, not investment advice. And if you got any value out of this, just like and subscribe on YouTube and Spotify video through and Anchor. All the links are in the descriptions that I put up of wherever you're listening to. And join me at The Art of Value on Twitter. All right, see you next time.